For the movie that we're going to talk about today, I just want to start with saying a lesson that I keep learning is that if someone makes a recommendation to you about a movie or about a show, no matter what the genre is, if you think it's something you might like or you might not like, I'm begging you, go into it with an open mind, and I'm telling you, you will be surprised. I went into this movie and I did think I was going to like it, but I did not think that it was going to impact me the way it did. Whether the recommendation is coming from a friend or in this case for me, a family member, go into it with an open mind. And now that you're hearing me say this, please hold me to this as well, because I don't always listen to this. And after seeing this movie, I realize I really should. In 2016, Robert Harris published a book which told the story about the death of a pope and then the following papal conclave and that process to elect his successor. With this movie, you have an amazing all-star cast which includes Ralph Fiennes, John Lithgow, Stanley Tucci, and Isabella Rossellini. Joining on the episode today to talk about this movie is my cousin Bahare Amidi Shaghi, who recommended this movie to me. Today, we're talking about the movie Conclave. Let's talk for a minute. Bahare, thank you for being on the episode today. I really do appreciate it.
It's absolutely a pleasure being here, Sohrab.
As soon as I came out of this movie, I had to text you right away because you were the one who told me about this movie in the first place. I remember I got a text and you said, have you seen this movie? You need to see it. Was that along the lines?
Yes, exactly. I knew it's something that, I don't know, that you would enjoy or would have enjoyed. So you saw it after that, I gather.
Yeah, it was just, I think, maybe a day or two afterwards. I went to go see it. It's one of those movies that the timing of seeing that film couldn't have been better. I felt it had really strong messages in there. I really do appreciate it when you see a movie, it gives you a moment of pause. This was one of those movies. So my first question for our initial ratings, out of 10, what would you give this movie?
I'd like to go back to what you just said, and then I will tell you my rating. As I was watching the movie, the entire time, I was like, oh my God. Like, this is real life things happening. Let's say, not necessarily because we live in Washington, D.C., but in the United States and perhaps in the world. So you're right as far as saying that, some movies are like that. I wonder if anybody or everybody that walks out of that movie finds something that is like, oh my God. From 1 out of 10, truly, I would give it a 10, Sohrab.
I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I would give it a 9.5 or a 9. Let's go with the pros at first, though. There's definitely a few I have, but I'm just curious, what were maybe some things for this movie that stood out for you where you wanted to text me or you want to tell others, you wanted to encourage people to see it? What would be some of those things that you really liked?
Number one were the actors in the movie that absolutely jumped out. They spoke as if they were alive. They spoke as if they were going through this conclave themselves in real life. That was a big part for me. And then I would say the way it was filmed, the cinematography of it. So many places, I kind of gave my elbow to my husband and I was like, look. I mean, the umbrellas, and I don't want to give stuff away. There's no giving away, but each scene was a painting, a piece of art, each scene, and some of them more than others.
I think they filmed in Rome too, which definitely helped with that. When you mentioned the actors, again, Ralph Fiennes, you have Jonathan Lithgow, Stanley Tucci, who's I think always great in everything, Isabella Rossellini, who I had not seen in movies in a long time. I was really happy to see her back in movies. And then I feel bad because I don't know the names of these characters, but there's 2 additional characters or 3 additional characters that were just absolutely engaging. Cardinal Tedesco, Cardinal Adeyemi, and then Cardinal Benitez. All 3 of these characters were very interesting. One part I feel okay saying is that there's a cardinal who joins later. That character's involvement in the whole story was just phenomenal. Goosebumps.
Actually, right now, I got goosebumps and you saw me touch my arms. Yes, that was phenomenal. All of it, but each entry, each character, the fact that there was the lack of female characters, but there were some women in there. For me, Sohrab, it was really interesting because this movie showed no cleavage, no legs, there were no car races, and yet my heart was beating and I was at the edge of my seat the whole time.
Their performances, the directing, but you know what I think also really contributed to that too? The music. I think a lot of it was orchestral and, even percussion type music, but from the beginning all the way through, as there are twists and turns that happen, that music has a strong presence in that movie.
Very much so, very much so. It was as if you're looking at a piece of incredible art and there's this incredible background music that adds flavor to each scene.
I don't know of a movie that brings you inside a conclave as this is happening. And again, it's a movie. We know they have to assume some things, take some creative liberties, but it was fascinating to watch. The other part too, later on, it introduces some things which, as a story and talking about this particular community, I thought, wow, this is a big risk they're taking, but I'm glad they're taking it.
Yes, so true. So many realities unfold here in this movie. Realities that perhaps we've read about or we know about, but to actually be so transparent about it is really wonderful.
I'm curious, I want to get your take specifically, but at the end when there's a big twist, I hope that what's taken from it is let's think about it. But I have a feeling also that if there are those who are very, I don't know of another word to use here, rigid with the views, it might just be something that unfortunately offends and people are going to then dismiss the whole thing. And I hope that's not what's taken from it.
Sohrab, it's like anything else. We can read the front page of the paper today. I might think, oh, I'm so happy this is out. And somebody else will read it and say, what the heck are they talking about? They don't know what they're saying and stuff. And here as well, you're right. For the rigid people, perhaps they will definitely not be recommending it to their neighbors and friends and this and that. But then realities over the centuries and over the decades have changed so much. And this reality is, again, I love this. If I want to put one word with this movie Conclave, it would be transparent.
Especially with what they decide to do at the end. It's a fascinating movie. This is definitely in my top 10 for this year for sure. Edward Berger directed it. This is the guy who made the movie last year called All Quiet on the Western Front, the Netflix World War II movie. And he's a very talented director, and I can see that he has definitely a very successful career ahead of him. Just, again, the directing was also phenomenal in this movie.
Oh, incredible. I'd like to also add that for me, the costumes, again, this is in a conclave, this is during a conclave, so you can imagine what they would be wearing, but just the form, the colors, the crispness, the essence, and yet the transparency of it was beautiful for me.
Now I want to switch to the cons. Was there anything, any negative, maybe something that gave you any pause or...
I would have to say no, but maybe when I hear your cons, I might say, oh, I didn't think of that. This is a movie that could have been too long, but it wasn't. This is a movie that could have lost one's attention, but it didn't. So for me, as of right this moment, no cons, but I'd love to hear what you picked up.
I felt the same way as what you just said, that when you're watching this movie, what I want to advise people now when they go see it is give it a chance all the way through. I do feel that when the movie starts, it's a bit of a slow burn, but now I realize that's on purpose. They're leading you and building you up towards something. However, I know that with a lot of movies that are out now or shows that are out now, the pacing is a lot faster and these kind of slow grand reveals aren't as common anymore. That would be my only con, and I know it's a stretch. It's that I would worry that people, especially if they don't see it in the movie theater, if they wait till this is at home and they watch it on demand or when it's out on streaming, I have a feeling after 30 minutes they might give up, because they're just not patient with it, or it's just not, they think it's not their cup of tea. But I'm telling you, if you give it a chance, this movie will surprise you.
Yes, and it will be your cup of tea, no matter what kind of tea you like.
Yeah, and that's really my only, as far as cons, because everything else, again, you have this amazing cast. You have a director who's fantastic. I felt like this is one of those movies that it might sound cheesy to say where the stars aligned. Good script, good directing, good actors. Because, you could even have some of those things. You could have, let's say, an amazing cast, but if you don't give them anything to say, or the director is not confident, or what, it shows. And then you're not enjoying the movie.
True. No, this had it all. It's the cup of tea with the biscuit even. Perfect temperature. I would highly recommend it to anybody. I mean, it could even be a family outing because there's so much to learn there as well, and really beautiful.
I just can't emphasize enough also the surprises, but in a good way. The surprises, and I also just really enjoyed that this movie pulled off a lot where it's a set group of people, and the sets are beautiful and gorgeous, and they're amazing, but it's only a certain number of rooms or a certain number of places, and yet, as you said, it engages you. This is definitely going to be in my top 10 for 2024. I do hope all of you do check it out. Now, I want to come back to our ratings. You had said 10 and I had said 9.5. Do you still stand by yours?
I still stand by mine, clearly. And I think you're going to change to a 10 now.
Exactly. I was just going to say that I think that's too nitpicky, because my only issue with the film was that looking at the watch and I'm like, okay, 30 minutes, where is this going? I had some feelings of that myself at first, and I think I've been conditioned. Whereas if you just have patience and then trust that these people who work and tell these stories, work on this craft, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Give it a chance.
Yeah.
So yes, my 9.5 is definitely now a 10. And right now, Conclave is playing in theaters. I do hope you check it out. Bahar, thank you for being on today.
Not at all. Thank you for trusting me and going to see the movie. Thank you so much for having me on, Sohrab.
And with that, I want to mention that this is going to be our last episode of 2024. Sound Speed Action will be back in January. One more time, I would like to thank my cousin Bahar for being on the program today and for making the recommendation. I really do appreciate it. And as was said earlier, this film definitely is going to be on my top 10 list for the year. I do hope you check it out. And if you enjoyed today's episode, I'd greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to leave a rating for the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Your support and feedback helps us to continue making this show and helps the show reach even more listeners. Thank you for your support. And as always, thanks for listening.